welcome to our presentation. I'm Amy, this is Joe, Steve, and Shane. We are presenting to you about American Apparel today and about specifically the labor concerns that we have currently. So, who are we? American Apparel. You guys know who we are. We're a very strong brand in the United States, nationwide. And one of the reasons we're so strong is because we are growing our profits every year. We have cutting edge fashion, and we have a very good reputation to back that up. So, we do have a dilemma right now. We have too much labor, even though we are growing profits every year, and we need to solve that problem. So, how are we going to do that? Well, some people might say, cut your staff, fire your employees, but we're not going to do that because one of the reasons we do have such a strong image nationwide is our reputation. We have a very strong ethical code of conduct, and we're going to stay true to that by not firing our staff and maintaining that strong loyalty with them. So, our goals: we're going to fix our labor problems and maintain our strong ties to both our employees as well as our consumers across the nation. So, how are we going to do that? Well, we're not going to lay people off, and we're going to continue growing our profits, which we've been doing year after year. And one of the reasons that's so important is because we do have that ethical code of conduct, and our reputation for being true to our consumers is what brings those consumers in, and it drives our marketing and drives those profits year after year. So it doesn't make sense to lay anyone off. We're going to keep our employees this year and year after year because that's part of our image and that's our brand and that's what sells. Take it away, Ching.
I'm going to talk about the ethics in two aspects. The first one is ethics contributes to sustainability. To some extent, doing business recruitment in an ethical way may mean loss, but it also creates value. On the one hand, the ethics of a company may show its respect to its staff and its willingness to establish long-term relationship with those employees. On the other hand, employees are going to build stronger relationship with their company because they realize they will be protected in any crisis. So therefore, they will create more value to the company. And besides, employees could also be customers. So, and they are part of our marketing. So, as a result, ethics help our company achieve sustainability. The second aspect is ethics standards diversify marketing channels. Ethics standard shows another avenue for marketing because it establishes trust that consumers respond to and respect. Next, Joe is talking about reputation effects.
So as you guys know, we were founded on the principle of being sweatshop free, and that principle isn't just about criticizing other business models, but also about trying something new, and that something new is valuing our employees as valued partners, and that's something that we've strived for our entire existence as a company, and we'll continue striving for that going forward. So if we lay all these workers off, that can negatively impact our employee motivation. Our employees won't feel that we value them as partners anymore, which could decrease our productivity, and it could also negatively impact our public relations. because our entire philosophy has been built up on this standard that we treat our employees as valued partners. And they also, our employees view us as above industry standards, and if we lay all them off due to cyclical downturn, we'll just be viewed as doing the same thing everyone else in our industry does, and we want to avoid that. So one aspect of treating your employees as valued partners is it creates a mutual respect between the employer and the employees. So once we lay them off, that could severely impact this mutual respect between the remaining employees that we do keep on our payroll. And we give this respect and all the benefits we give to our employees not just because it's charitable handouts and not because we think it's the right thing to do, but also because it substantially improves our worker productivity as well as their loyalty. And it helps contribute to their quality of life, which in turn makes them more productive at work. So when you're trying to decide whether or not to lay off these employees, I ask you if you'd rather have this, or do we want to end up with this? And next, our resident accountant, Steve Phillips, will talk about the profits of this problem.
Okay, so far, we've told you that it's more ethical and it helps our brand image by not laying off our seasonal employees. But I'm here to tell you that it'll also be profitable to keep the employees on and not terminate our seasonal employees. So the way that we do that is it'll be lower cost, better quality, and more revenue. So as far as cost, training new staff is really expensive. We'll get to some statistics later, but to train a new employee, not only are you paying that new employee, but you're also paying someone to train them. So it's pretty costly to have that really high turnover. As far as quality, newer sewers make more mistakes, and so you have more products that are going to be returned for having low quality. And that's what separates us from Walmart and Target, is having high quality goods. So that will reduce costs if we're not having to train these new employees that make more mistakes. And then as far as more revenue, there's a strong correlation between our reputation and consumers' willingness to purchase our goods. So we can also get more revenue by not having these, or terminating these employees. So as far as lower costs, we found a statistic from Sasha Corporation that says for an $8 per hour employee, it costs $9,444, which is a pretty substantial cost. You also have recruitment and administrative costs, as far as, finding new employees and training them. You have a lot of costs that are also not as evident. It can be pretty expensive to have new employees. And then you also have disturbances in workflow. So if you're training a new employee, that's slowing down your production, is making it less productive. And then better quality. Not only are new employees slow, but they're less efficient. So nobody likes that. And I mentioned earlier that returns of clothing is costly, and it hurts our image. If people go home and their shirts fall off of their backs, that doesn't look good on our image. We have an image of having quality goods. And then lastly, more revenue. I mentioned earlier there's a strong correlation between companies' image and profits. We get positive publicity for having good labor practices, which is going to bring us a lot of revenue in the future. So, in conclusion, it's more ethical, it helps our reputation, and in the long run, it's going to be more profitable to keep these seasonal employees.
And if somebody could stay there by the laptop so that if there are some slides that I'd like you to go back to now. What I'd like to do is to go over each aspect of the presentation separately. And so if we could go around, start with Peach and go around. Am I pronouncing your name right, Peach? I thought there might be some special way to, Jay. I don't know. To go through the structure first, how they structure the argument, and then we'll go through the design separately, and then we'll give them the delivery feedback separately. So if you would start with the structure, the way that they structure that.
You mean the slide or?
No, the way that they structured their argument in terms of the reasons that they were giving for the
Like
position.
building to.
How they were building toward, in other words, the organization.
Can we start with Dan first and
Yeah.
then I'll be second?
Okay, all right, that'll be fine.
Sure. So they first started with outlining who they are, and then they went to presented the problem, but they wanted to maintain their image and their ethical practices, and then they finalized it with the solutions. So how they could maintain their profits and ethics and all that fun stuff.
How about, this is their structure. Logically, does that work for you?
Yes.
Why?
Well,
And I'm not questioning you.
yeah, I mean, I think that is how they were talking. I think Amy first kind of laid out who they were, and then she went into their ethics, and Joe talked about the reputation, and Steve talked about how to maintain profitability and what their kind of plan in place was for that.
Okay, and any commentary from any of you on the logic behind that sequence? What's the logic behind it? I will tell you ahead of time, I think it works. Why does it
Well, I
work?
think it starts because it starts immaterial, basically, and becomes material.
Right.
You go from something that's not concrete to concrete, and you can say, yeah, don't lay them off for reputation, but if you have nothing to say why, it really doesn't make sense.
Right, and being able to establish values, and then showing how those values in terms of reputation actually are benefiting the company, and then getting to the bottom line. And so I think that your way of describing it is a way of saying that's the way that they're building the logic. Just in case you didn't know that that's why you did it that way, but
We knew.
it sounded
We knew.
it sounded to me like you.
We're good.
Yeah, you acted like you knew something. But that's what I mean by the sequence of the logic, is that there needs to be a reason that they've chunked it in these three ways, and there needs to be a reason that they put it in the order that they put it into. Because they're building towards something. And basically they're building toward the bottom line, because in business, the bottom line, ultimately. It's also really smart to end with your strongest argument, but they were also setting it up so that it didn't sound like cold. Well, it's more profitable, and that's the only reason we're doing it. Bobby, any other comments on the way they structured it?
I thought they did a pretty good job. I think it was a different approach than what we took, and I think hashing out like each point was a nice way to do it. You know, you really boiled down what you were trying to get through to everybody. I think that worked pretty well. I think that if there was one weakness, it'd be like, what is the actual solution? You know, like how are you gonna come to the conclusion of you need less people producing less stuff? What are you actually gonna do?
Right, and so basically, all they really argued was don't lay them off,
Right,
and didn't actually solve the problem.
right. I think, I won't say in comparison to ours, I think a lot of what they did is strong and
But
really built up the
he
argument.
secretly thinks theirs is better.
No, I think
We'll
that's
see.
actually good. I liked how they pulled out each piece. I mean, that's really important to break down what is being talked about here. I mean, what are really the issues? Is in the end, you're going to do something,
Right.
but what are you trying to achieve? I think that got the point across really well.
Anything to add to that?
Structurally wise, no, I thought it was good use of the pyramid.
Okay. And what about the opening and closing?
I didn't feel that the opening was super strong, but I mean, it was just like, you gotta introduce yourself some way. It's like,
Yeah, there are more polished ways to do that, though.
We should have had like confetti falling from the ceiling and they just
Yeah.
run in the door.
Yeah, like that, or a bottle of champagne or something, yeah.
Next time.
you didn't
Yeah.
tell us we could bring champagne.
Yeah.
Guess what? We're not laying you guys off.
Yeah, we're being persuasive. And they're closing.
Money, that's strong.
This is their closing.
Oh, well, I thought it was like a summary, not, I guess it does say
Well,
conclusion.
that's what a closing is, one of the options.
I think
They
the
did a
closing
recap.
is good because they summarize what they taught,
Mhm.
like what they taught in the presentation
Mhm.
and close summary at the end. I think it's good.
Right, and I think in terms of couple things to really make this structure, to push it forward and really make this structure work, is that the opening needs to much more quickly and sharply focus in on the immediate problem.
Okay.
We need to know that right away, and you can even experiment with focusing on the problem first and then introducing yourselves and then going into a solution. Part of what made the opening a little bit, it was a little vague. It was partly that what was being said wasn't very focused. And then you also want to make sure that your delivery, your energy was really good, Amy, but also make sure that your eye contact is really strong. You were looking toward us, but not necessarily actually, really connecting
Thank you.
eye contact at us. So then to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to say and that it has a kind of speed of delivery that is setting up the kind of confidence that you want to project. Steve?
Would be beneficial to have a similar slide like this at the beginning that kind of lays out, okay, we're going to talk about ethics, reputation, and profitability, or was our intro if we just added what the problem was?
You don't necessarily have to have an overview. An overview can be good, but what did work with yours is that once you did get to the problem and you need a more focused and more specific problem statement, but you've got your problem, then that while it looks like labor, layoffs are the solution, we're gonna say no. And so that's your recommendation, and then you go into, you've got the pieces. It's just a matter of making sure that they're brought more into focus, and that first part is set up faster, so that you can go through this. I would find a way to address Bobby's concern that you're not solving the problem. You're just saying what you're not going to do. That doesn't mean that you necessarily lay out the solution to the problem. But you do need something that is a next steps, for instance. So you say what we're facing is the possibility of layoffs, and we're going to say not a good idea for these reasons, and so this isn't your conclusion, this is what sets us up to, and now this is what we have to do to figure out how we can solve this problem without layoffs. We need to consider this, that, or the other, whatever. So if you're not going to solve the problem, since you've got great content for these, at least give us a minute or two of next steps, where to go from here, so that we know that you're solving the problem and not just saying we can't solve it that way.
Should that be in the intro, or should we wait until the conclusion to give that solution?
Well, what you can do in the intro is that you can say, so that the audience knows what to expect, you can say, here's the problem, layoffs seem like the obvious solution, we're going to say don't do that, and what that means is that we've got a lot of thinking to do about how to solve it without layoffs. But first we want to explain to you why we think the easiest solution isn't the best. This is why. And then transition into, okay, and here's the game plan for figuring out what to do without. And you might say, we can consider this, this, and this. Here are some of the variables, or here are the moving parts that we have to address. So you don't have to solve it if that's not the focus of your presentation, but you do have to show that you know what has to be taken into consideration to solve the problem. Because you probably don't want a presentation that simply says, problem, don't do that, the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, design, oh, did you have anything else? No, you said what you wanted to.
The design.
Yeah,
of the
design
slide.
of the slides.
I think the slide is not in the same pattern all from the beginning to the end. and some slides are really scattered, like really hard to read. It's not like in the same content, like, I don't know.
Format?
Yeah, same format, so
Yeah.
that's what my comment.
And that, I think that that's a good observation, Dan.
Yeah, it was almost like you guys developed your slides independently and then came together and put them all together.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
And that, you know, if you do that on the job, it really, it shows, yeah. So, so what you need to do is at the very least come together and say, this is what our template is. And you want to create your own template, and with that template, if you go back to the list, there are only 4 things, and I'll see if I can remember the 4 things that I suggested to you. But you decide on the color, and I would venture beyond black and white. And so decide on a color, resist those PowerPoint templates unless you use a really plain one, but give yourself a fill for your background that's a contrast to the color of your, so it's color, and then it's the style of font, and that means 2 or 3 different levels of font that you're going to be using for the title, the subtitles, bullets, that sort of thing. And but the color and font need to be the same, and then your grid, which means, and this is what Peach was referring to, is that you don't you've got lines all over the place. And it's much easier for people to take in your slide if you've only got maybe 3 of the vertical lines. Horizontal you can do quite a bit with, but vertical lines, your pictures are all in about the same place, or at least there's a grid, and sometimes the pictures